نعم. الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. اتبع ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم ولا تتبعوا من دونه أولياء قليلا ما تذكرون. نعم. So we're still in the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir that the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And we spoke about the animal being let loose, the dog, the hunting dog, and that if that hunting dog
Salib.
were to, Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Umar, if that hunting dog were to get to the beast that it was released for, and another dog was found with that animal, then that animal now becomes doubtful because one dog is trained and the other dog is not. Side benefit, the importance of knowledge. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time this was mentioned. Even when it comes down to animals, and this is not to belittle anyone, but it's to encourage everyone to give knowledge its due respect and diligence in seeking it. Because Allah Ta'ala has made a distinction between a dog that is ignorant and a dog that is knowledgeable. So if this is the case with animals, then what is the case with human beings? يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah Ta'ala said Allah raises those who believe amongst you and those who have been given knowledge in levels. So there are levels, like the people say in slang, there's levels to this thing, right? So that's the same thing with ilm in the absence of it. Every time a person increases in ilm wal amal, then with Allah, and we said that knowledge and acting according to it. Because we understand that the lowest level is to have knowledge and not act according. This is the lowest level, to know and not act. And the highest level is to know and act. And then right after the low level of knowing but not acting is not knowing and not acting. And not knowing and not acting is better than knowing and not acting, because at least the one who doesn't know and doesn't act is not acting without knowledge, and it is excused for their ignorance as long as their ignorance is not due to neglect. So you have knowing and not acting. You have knowing. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. You have knowing and not acting. Then you have not knowing and not acting, and then you have not knowing and acting. So as a matter of fact, I'm sorry, I mentioned that out of order. So the worst is knowing and not acting. The next worst is not knowing and acting. So the first low is to know and not act according to your knowledge. That's the lowest of the low. And I'm saying it with this wording intentionally and purposely for us to understand the importance of knowledge and according to and acting to the knowledge. So knowing and not acting is the worst level. This is the behavior of the hypocrites and the Jews. This is the behavior of the hypocrites and the Jews. And then not knowing and acting, this is the behavior of the Christian. And then you have not knowing and not acting. This is the behavior of the heedless. The heedless. But at least they didn't act without knowledge. So the Jews knew, but didn't act according to their knowledge. The Christians didn't know, and so they invented things of their own accord. And then you have those who, amongst the Muslims, don't know and don't do. And amongst every other group, those who don't know, nor do they do. So those who don't know because the knowledge wasn't available, then they're excused. But those who don't know because they neglected to seek knowledge, then there's not an excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nah. So this shows a dog with ilm is better than a dog without ilm. So everything that has ilm, wal amal, is better than the thing of its class that does not that have knowledge without actions. Everything that has knowledge and actions is better than anything of its class that doesn't have knowledge and doesn't have actions, or in those categories we mentioned, and so forth and so on. Nah. And Allah Ta'ala said that that is transgression and corruption to eat something that's been slaughtered other than the name of Allah. Now, also we mentioned the hadith of Al-Hasan, the grandson of the Prophet. He said that the Prophet told him, leave that which makes you doubt for that which does not make you doubt. وقال بعض العلماء المشتبهات ثلاثة أقسام. And some of the scholars say that the doubtful matters are three categories. منها ما يعلم الإنسان أنه حرام ثم يشك فيه هل زال تحريمه أم لا، كالذي يحرم على المرء أكله قبل الذكاة إذا شك في ذكاته لم يزل التحريم إلا بيقين الذكاء. So he said it's like the three categories. And from it is that an individual knows that something is impermissible. And then he doubts of it becoming permissible. Has it become permissible or not? Like a person is prohibited from eating meat because he doesn't know if it's been slaughtered properly or not. So he's doubted. And then, Afwan. Nah. So then he doubts, okay, was it slaughtered properly or not? So it still would remain impermissible until he's sure that it was done properly. والأصل في ذلك حديث عدي المتقدم ذكره. And the origin of the foundation in that is from the hadith of Adi that was mentioned previously. والعكس ذلك أن يكون الشيء حلالا فيشك في تحريمه كالرجل له زوجة فشك في طلاقها أو أمه فيشك في عتقها. He said, and this another example of that, the opposite of that is a thing that is halal. So the person doubt if it has become haram or not. Like a man, he has a wife, so he has doubt that he divorced her or not. Or he has a slave girl, and he doubts has he freed her or not. فما كان من هذا القسم فهو على الإباحة حتى يعلم تحريمه. So whoever's the opposite situation, he know it was halal, but he doubts it if it's become haram, then what? It is haram until it's proven that it's been halal. والأصل في هذا حديث عبد الله بن زيد في من شك نعم في من شك في الحدث بعد أن تيقن من الطهارة. He said in the asl is this, and this is the hadith we're going through in Umdat al-Ahkam. He said the hadith of Ibn Zayd, Abdullah ibn Zayd, about the individual who doubted whether or not he broke his wudu after being sure that he made tahar. So he has wudu until he's sure he broke it. والقسم الثالث, the third category, يشك في شيء فلا يدرى حلال أم حرام ويحتمل الأمرين جميعا ولا دلالة على أحدهما فالأحسن التنزه. نعم كما فعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في التمرة ساقطة في التمرة ساقطة حين وجدها في بيته فقال لولا أني أخشى أن تكون من الصدقة لأكلتها. So this third category, that is where a person has a doubt about a thing, doesn't know if it's halal or haram, and it could be either or, and there's no evidence for either it being haram or it being halal. So the best position to take is to stay away from it and avoid it, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did concerning a date that fell down in his house. Now remember, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the government. So the taxes and the charities would be collected by the Sahaba and taken to his house sometime. And then it would be put in Beit al-Mal and like that. So he found a date on the floor in his house. So he said, if it wasn't for the fact that I feared that this might be from charity, I would have eaten it. But it could have fell from charity. And one of the specifications about prophets, and specifically the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bani Hashim, he was not allowed to eat sadaqah. The Prophet was not allowed to accept sadaqah for his own personal use. So if a date fell in his house, so if a date fell in his house and it was from sadaqah, then it wouldn't be permissible for him to eat it. So because he thought it could be from sadaqah, so if it's from sadaqah, it's haram for me. But if it's not, it's halal. But I don't know which one it's from. So the Prophet avoided eating it because of that possibility. Now, وأما إن عفوا إن جوز نعم إذا جوز النقيض ما ترجح عنده بأمر عفوا نعم موهوم لا أصل له كترك استعمال ماء بعض على أوصافه مخافة تخدير نجاسة وقعت فيه، أو كترك الصلاة في موضع لا أثر فيه مخافة أن يكون فيه بول قد جف، أو غسل ثوب مخافة إصابة نجاسة لم يشاهدها ونحو ذلك، فهذا يجب أن لا يلتفت إليه، فإن التوقف لأجل ذلك تجويز هوس ذلك عفوا التجويز هوس، والورع منه وسوسة شيطان، إذ ليس فيه من معنى الشبهة شيء. Wallahu a'lam. This is a very, very, very important point. As for the opposite of this, where it's possible for it to be halal or haram, the opposite of this, and naqid, is an individual imagining ترجح عنده بأمر موهوم لا أصل فيه. So now this person is imagining a doubt. He has no evidence for it. This is an imaginary doubt. Like a person not using water, saying, man, something filthy could have fallen in his water that I didn't see, and so the water could be najasa. Just from his head, he said that, not because there was any filth near it or around it or was in a bathroom or next to a toilet or urinal or anything. Just in his mind, the water could be in the kitchen, in the refrigerator. Saying, hold it, but who put it here? It could have, just imaginary. Also, a person abandoning praying in a certain place, that there's no signs that there were not an odor, not a stain, anything that any kind of filth was there. Say, somebody could have peed here, then it could have dried, and this is not somewhere normally people would urinate and like that. So the person begins to imagine things. This is not considered a shubha. What people imagine is not considered a shubha. Or washing a thobe, a piece of a garment or clothing, saying, oh, some filth could have got on it. This is not from this. And it's important that a person, when he gets these imaginary whispers, that he does not busy himself, he or she does not busy themselves with these thoughts, because what? That is from the shaitan, and it is not from the doubtful matters. It's not from the doubtful matters. Nah. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. In the Prophet's statement, many people don't know about these doubtful matters. لا يعلم حكمهن من التحليل أو تحريم. It means that the most people don't know what's the ruling concerning these things. Are they permissible or impermissible? إلا فالذي يعلم الشبهة. يعلمها من حيث إنها مشكلة لترددها بين أمور محتملة، فإذا علم بأي أصل يلتحق زوال يلتحق يلتحق زوال كونها شبهة. نعم، وكانت إما من الحلال أو من الحرام، وفيه دليل على أن الشبهة لها حكم خاص بها يدل عليه دليل شرعي يمكن أن يصل إليه بعض الناس. نعم. He said, uh, most people don't know the ruling, is it halal or haram, except for the one who knows that a doubtful matter. And the one who knows the doubtful matter, he knows that it is a problem because it is an affair that is stuck between possibilities. This is possible, that is possible. This is the problem of the shubha. This is what we know about shubha. But as far as the ruling, then most people don't know the ruling, but they know that it's a problem because it's possible of more than, has more than one possibility. Now, and then he says, فَإِذَا عَلِمَ بِأَيِّ أَصْلٍ. This is a very important principle, Muslims. So if he knows the origin of the issue, meaning, well, it comes from a permissible standpoint, like without this doubt that has been placed on it, it's normally permissible. Then it remains that way until it's proven haram. Or if he knows that this is normally haram, then he treats it as haram until it's proven to be halal. And I'll give an example. Pivoting off the example that the Sheikh gave earlier. Okay, so a man knows that this sister is not his wife. He knows she's not his wife. And then there's a sit down. He has a sit down with her. The wali is there and everybody's there. They have a good time. And so let's say the wali says something like, man, I have no problem with you marrying my daughter. I would have married you to a long time ago. Mashallah, you seem like a good brother, man. You might as well consider her your wife already, man. I have no problem with you. So we say you might as well consider your wife already. But when he walked in, she wasn't his wife. And he didn't know what the wali meant when he said that. What does he mean? I might as well consider like does that mean we're married? So because the origin of their relationship is that they're not husband and wife, so until he's sure, what? He's not his wife. That's how it goes. He's not his wife. Same thing with the opposite. Same thing with the opposite. The woman has a fight. Allah protect this woman, has a big argument with her husband, and he's like, you're not even, you're basically not even my wife. Like, did he pronounce talaq? Like, what did he mean by that? What do you mean? It's like you're not my wife, or you're not even my wife, or what does he mean by that? So now the origin is that she is his wife. So she remains doing the wife duty. She doesn't cover up. She doesn't leave the house until she's sure that that's a divorce, or a final divorce in which those things take place, or not a final divorce, that her iddah has begun by him making that statement and like that. So that's the example of you attach the issue to its origin. So if the origin is that it's normally halal, it remains halal until proven haram. And if the origin that is normally haram, then it remains haram until proven halal. Wallahu a'la wa a'lam. وقوله فمن اتقى الشبهات فقد استبرأ لدينه وعرضه. And whoever protected himself from the doubtful matters, then he has freed himself with regard to his religion and his honor. Now, مما يشتبه وأما قوله. Now, so he is now not somebody that's doubtful, nor can his deen or his honor be doubted. أما قوله ومن وقع في الشبهات وقع في الحرام. And as for the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, whoever falls into the doubtful matters falls into the haram. فذلك يكون بوجهين. So this is from two perspectives. أحدهما أن من لم يتق الله تجرأ على الشبهات وأفضت به إلى المحرمات. Now, so one perspective is that whoever doesn't fear Allah, then he becomes bold and enters into doubtful matters until finally he enters into the haram matters. May Allah protect us from that. Ameen. ويحمله التساهل في أمرها على الجرأة على الحرام. Now, so what happens is يحمله التساهل في أمرها على الجرأة على الحرام كما قال بعضهم الصغيرة تجر الكبيرة. نعم، والكبيرة تجر الكفر. لا إله إلا الله. كما روي المعاصي بريد الكفر. نعم. So he said that what? So what happens is that the person being lackadaisical when it comes to the affairs of doubtful matters ends up falling into the haram. Like it is said, small sins will eventually lead you to major sins, and major sins will eventually lead you to disbelief. Now, and like also was in the one narration, that disobedience is the messenger of disbelief. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned something similar to this in his book Fawaid, the benefits. And he said what? مراحل البعد عن الله أربعة. He said the stages of going away from Allah, getting far away from Allah, are 4 stages. He said, الأولى الغفلة. The first stage of a person getting distance from Allah is heedlessness. Person becomes heedless, meaning not in dhikr Allah, not in ibadah, just busy with dunya, busy with things that has nothing to do with the remembrance of Allah. Heedlessness. He said, الثاني معاصي. The heedlessness eventually leads to disobedience. Heedlessness, what did the elders used to say back in the day? The idle mind is a playground for the devil. Heedlessness. The idle mind is a playground for the devil. So heedlessness, no dhikr of Allah, will eventually lead somebody to disobedience. Then the disobedience, a person continues upon that, it will eventually lead him to bid'ah. The bid'ah will eventually lead the individual. People say, how can just making a sin lead to bid'ah? How many people have fallen into bid'ah that eventually led to kufr because, after fallen into disobedience, because they wanted to make the haram halal. So this is the kind of stuff it will eventually lead to. Wallahu al-musta'an. So he said, and after bid'ah could eventually lead to disbelief. Eventually lead to disbelief. Now, so he said the second point of view, الوجه الثاني أن من أكثر من المواقعة مواقعة الشبهات أظلم عليه قلبه. لا إله إلا الله اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من ذلك. لا إله إلا الله اللهم اغفر لنا. آمين. Thanks Allah to forgive us and protect us from this. He said the second point of view is that the person who continuously delves into and falls into doubtful matters, his heart becomes dark. أظلم عليه قلبه. His heart becomes dark. لفقدان نور العلم ونور الورع. لا إله. He said because he loses the light of knowledge and he loses the light of wara, and wara is the light of abstinence. Abstinence builds abstinence from things that could be disobedience to Allah, even if it's not 100% sure, but it comes from a point of view that's negative. That abstinence, what it does is it builds up integrity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means that an individual has left off what we do with one another. He's left off, can't even think of a better expression other than trying to run game on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know how we do. Then you say, no, I told you, you said between 8 and 8:30, right? Okay, it's 8:20, but you know that we're supposed to open 8. But I mean, why would you say between 8 and 8:30? This is what we do to each other, right? If we keep, may Allah forgive us, we keep that behavior, we maybe not even realize it, that we take that behavior to the commands of Allah. We take that behavior to the prohibition of Allah. And then we begin playing. We don't say it boldly, but we do it in our behavior. We begin playing that game around the Sharia, around the legislation of Allah. I mean, the ayat does say that. I'll give you a clear example. Astaghfirullah. I'll give you a clear example where I've heard this said. May Allah forgive us all, ameen, with our tongues, right? The hadith of the look. Huh? The hadith of the look. The first look is yours, right? And I didn't turn my head yet. I can keep looking, right? Like that. Don't say it to me. Look up into the heavens and say that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Face the Qibla and say that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't say it to another human being, because they're not the one going to judge you. Say, Ya Allah, I'm looking at it. I haven't turned my head. That's the first look, right? Would you be bold enough to say that? In a joking way, something that Allah hates for us to do, to joke about his disobedience. This is still my first look. I ain't turned away yet. So this is how this stuff appears. This is how it appears. And I'm so happy that by the tawfiq of Allah, we're able to give a real example that we actually know, that we can relate to. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So, the one who keeps doing doubtful things, his heart becomes dark. And then because he loses the light of knowledge in the light of abstinence. فيقع في الحرام وهو لا يشعر به. So he ends up falling into haram. He doesn't even feel it, doesn't even realize it. He ends up falling into haram. وقد يأثم بذلك إذا تسبب منه إلى تقصير. تسبب إذا تسبب منه إلى التقصير. So, and then he will be sinful because that would eventually make him fall short concerning the commands of Allah or his prohibitions. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم كراعي يرعى حول الحمى, like a shepherd grazing in a private near a private pasture. يوشك أن يقع فيه. He's soon going to enter. هذا مثل ضرب لمحارم الله عز وجل. This example analogy was given for the impermissible, the things that Allah made impermissible. وأصله أن العرب كانت تحمي المراعي لمواشيها. So because the Arab, the origin is that the Arab, they used to put fences around their pastures for their animals. ويخرج بالتواعد بالعقوبة لمن قربها, and they would come out and threaten anybody that came close to their private pasture. نعم. فالخائف من عقوبة السلطان يبعد بماشيته عن ذلك الحمى. So the one who fears being punished by the ruler, he would stay away from those private pastures. إنه إذا قرب منه فالغالب الوقوع فيه, because if he got close to it, more than likely he's going to fall into it. لأنه قد تنفرد فاذ من تشذ والتشذ شاذ ولا ينضبط, because one of those sheep could go off alone or deviate from the path of the rest and not walk in order with the rest of the sheep, so end up going there. فالحذر. So to beware, أن يجعل بينه وبين ذلك الحمى مسافة يأمن فيها وقوع ذلك. So the one who is taking guard, he will make a distance between him and that private pasture where he feels safe that none of his sheep will go in there. وهكذا محارم الله عز وجل. And like that are the things that Allah made impermissible. من القتل, from murder, والربا, and usury, والسرقة, and stealing, وشرب الخمر, and drinking intoxicants, والقذف, and slander, وغيبة, and backbiting, والنميمة, and tale carrying, ونحو ذلك, and that which is like that. لا ينبغي أن يهوم حولها مخافة الوقوع فيها. So it is important that a person does not go around those issues out of fear he's going to fall into them. ويوشك, نعم, بكسر الشين, and it has a kasra on the sheen, this word yushiku, mudare, oshaka. It's the present tense of the word oshaka. And بفتحها, with a fatha on the sheen. وهي من أفعال المقاربة, and it's from the verbs that shows closeness. نعم. ويرتع بفتح التاء, and يرتع with a fatha on the تاء معناها أكل الماشية من المرعى. It means that the cattle eating from the pasture. وأصله إقامتها فيه وبسطها في الأكل. And it originally comes from a meaning that means that they are there in that pasture and they are eating uh, eating much from that pasture. وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا إن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله. إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله. That's all he said. He said, in the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, indeed, there's a piece of flesh in the body. If it is correct, if it is rectified, the whole body will be rectified. Al-Hadeeth. Now, a hadith. Wal-mudghah. And mudghah, a morsel of flesh, قطعة من اللحم. It means a piece of meat. وهي قدر ما يمضغه الماضغ. And it is the size of something that the average person would chew on. يعني بذلك صغر عفوا صغر جرمها وعظيم قدرها. So it is small in size but great in estimation. صلحت صلحت رويناه بفتح اللام والنعم. Said we narrated with a fatha on the lam. صلحت. نعم. والقلب في الأصل في الأصل مصدر. In the heart is a root word. سمي به هذا العضو الذي هو أشرف الأعضاء لسرعة خواتر فيه نعم فيه وترددها عليه. نعم. And he said that this organ was called the heart. And number one is the most honorable and most important organ in the body. And it was called the heart because the word qalb in Arabic, it means something that turns, twists, and changes. The word qalb, it means something that turns, twists, and changes. So it's called that in Arabic, the heart is called qalb because it's quick in turning and twisting and going back and forth. And so the thoughts and the ideas go around it like that way. And that's what causes the turn and twist and change like that. Nah. He said, وأنشد بعضهم في هذا المعنى, and some of them said poetry in this معنى, ما اسم القلب إلا من تقلبه فاحذر على القلب من قلب وتحويل. نعم وتحويل عفوا. He said, ما سمي القلب إلا من تقلبه فاحذر على القلب من نعم من قلب وتحويل. He said the heart was called the heart because of it always changing. So beware and protect your heart from changing and turning. Nah. Okay, I thought we were getting to the end. So we'll stop here and Nah. So inshallah next week we'll talk about وخص الله تعالى جنس الحيوان بهذا العضو. And Allah Ta'ala specified the animals with this particular organ وأوضع فيه تنظيم المصالح المقصودة, and put in it the organization of and organize the rectification, or that which the things that benefit these animals from that which is intended. فتجد البهائم على اختلاف أنواعها تدرك به مصالحها وتميز به مضرها نعم مضرها من منافعها. So he said you will notice animals were given hearts, all basically mammals. That's what it means. Mammals were given hearts, and you would notice in the mammals that Allah Ta'ala, like even the cattle, that Allah given them hearts, no matter what type of animal you see, that they understand that which benefits them from that which harms them. This is the benefit of the heart. ثم خص الله تعالى نوع الإنسان من سائر الحيوان بالعقل وأضاف إلى نعم وأضافه إلى القلب. فقال الله تعالى أفلم يسيروا في الأرض فتكن لهم قلوب يعقلون بها أو آذان أو آذان يسمعون بها. Allah Ta'ala then specified the human being, and He gave them both heart and intellect. Added to it, not F1, He added to their hearts intellect. And we'll talk about that another time, that we have two intellects. We have the academia, which is in its places inside of the brain. And then we have the spiritual intellect, and the place of that intellect is in the heart. And Allah Ta'ala said, did they not travel? فَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فتكون لهم قلوب يعقلون بها أو آذان يسمعون بها. Do they not travel through the earth so that they have hearts with which they understand and realize, or ears with which they hear? Now, so we'll talk about this inshallah ta'ala next week. Barakallahu fiqh. Was there any questions or statements about anything that was said? We'll take them now. If not, we'll stop here. No. جزاكم الله خيرا. هذا صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.